115 people, 116 members joining us online. And so to continue with our program, we're going to have welcome remarks from Auditorium, Professor Gordon Kabula. Yes, we welcome you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Rebecca, for kicking us off. Thank you, Trustee Joseph, for such a wonderful prayer. I was feeling nervous after your prayer. Very confident we are set. Mine today is simply to welcome us and make us feel comfortable, relaxed. Being a teacher, I know that's very important to be relaxed. In a learning session like this one, we are looking forward to it. Yes, before I go far, I will give you some details about the scheme, but allow me go through the kind of people we are expecting today, because it's very important for our presenter to know that, and our guests today. The trustees who are present in this session, I know some are physical here. Joseph has introduced himself. Then there are other trustees who are online. There are those who will join us along the way. We welcome you all. There are members of management, members of university management. I'm well aware the University Vice Chancellor yesterday himself announced this session at a forum where he was. So I know also at that level, there are people who will be following, either in physically or spiritually, but we welcome all members of university management who are attending this session. Yes, I also want to welcome the Secretariat staff, the Principal Pension Officer right now. Yes, the Secretariat staff, the Principal Pension Officer right now, Mrs. Juliet Nabukeda. You are most welcome. She's here physically. The PO Communications, Rebecca, is here physically. There are others working round the clock to make sure this session is important, to make sure this session is successful. Our guests, that team is very, very important. They run for us the day-to-day operations of the scheme. I know also staff associations are present. Some are present here physically, but those physically now carry two titles. I will reserve them and use the latest title, which I prefer. But there are those who are attending online, staff association executives We are happy you could join this. And most important, all members of the scheme. All members of the scheme, and that without fear of contradiction, I can say all staff of Makerere University, whether academic support or administrative. For those who have not joined, I'm sure with the wonderful prayer Yusuf has prayed, he will eventually join us. So I welcome you all on behalf of the Board of Trustees. I spoke with the board chairperson. She's with us online. We might be able to see her physically later on along the way. So I bring you greetings from the board, and I welcome you to this very important session. The most important thing is the one I've put here at the bottom of the slide, that to ensure our mission of securing a dignified retirement, one of the things we do is conduct this kind of member sensitization sessions. It is a resolve of the trustees to sensitize members, educate members about retirement well before retirement, Yes, the chairperson of the board I just mentioned, so she has arrived. Thank you very much. Yeah, so we do conduct these kinds of sessions as part and parcel of the mechanisms and activities put in place to make sure our members have a dignified retirement. You may think a dignified retirement is the best way to prepare for that is to make sure you have the biggest pot available as you exit at 60, the biggest benefit pot. But I'm telling you, you'll hear from the expert today. Sometimes small is good if you have prepared very well. So please, our members, take these trainings very seriously. Those who have already joined, please remind your colleagues to join. We are going to open the basket. Today we have been training in many ways. Last time I think we talked about preparing in terms of health and then making different ways of doing your investments. Today we'll hear something very interesting. Small steps maybe matter a lot. So I'm praying and I'm looking forward to a very engaging session, a very entertaining session. We hope this one is all inclusive, and the feedback that we get helps us arrange the next one. So please attend actively, ask the right questions, give us the right feedback. Otherwise, allow me use this opportunity to give you some little information about your scheme now. Where are we right now? So that you don't have to wait for AGM. Things that have happened in the recent past. You may remember very well the 14th AGM just happened a few months ago, 26 October. 13.40 is something we are still celebrating. I hope the members, you are still celebrating. For us as trustees, we are still celebrating. MURBS elections. We just had MURBS elections in December, forgive the typo here, December of 2025. And those elections were to refresh the board. So out of that process, we have incoming trustee, Michael Kizito. Michael Kizito, please stand up for recognition. Michael Kizito. I've been told by some people that we resemble. I don't know if it is true. So next time, if you don't see me, you can see Michael Kizito. Michael Kizito will be joining to represent Mukasa. Then the other trustees will be returning, CPA Francesca Angida online, and Mr. Joseph Ikarokok has just prayed for us. You are most welcome. You returned out of that election. We just had a very successful MURBS team building retreat. Many of us attended, many of us followed, and for us who attended, we have given feedback to the rest. The key highlights of that retreat, that was the scheme really appreciated the hard work on behalf of management, the hard work that the university secretary has done and was given special recognition, plus some other 22 ambassadors. Why do we make that kind of recognition? Even as we speak now, we do not demand any outstanding contributions from the sponsor. For those who have been around a long time, That's a very important status for this scheme to be in. All the January contributions came in, a total of 3.3 billion. And the good news is that this amount included harmonization money. If you are a member of staff of Makerere University, you know what that one means. Otherwise, we'll explain to you. So we are very grateful to management. Financial highlights where we are now. The column on the extreme right gives you the comparison. If these are the numbers of June 2024, that gave us 13.40. How are we doing now half year? That's December 2024. You can see sponsors' contributions. So far, we've collected a 19.4 billion. Employees' contributions, 4.7 billion. We have from contracts and projects, a 2.3, additional voluntary contributions of 61 million, and scheme secretariat staff so far have contributed 20. Benefits paid so far as at December 2024, not right now, but as at December 2024, we have already paid out 8.6 billion in terms of normal withdrawals, permanent migration, 16 million. Ill health, although by the end of the last financial year we had paid out 30 million, so far we've paid out nothing, which is good. Probably a reflection that our members of staff have not gone to that need yet, which could be an indication of good health. Purchase of annuities, this one we are doing very badly. We are doing very badly. Purchase of annuities, last financial year by June, we had sold out annuities of 260 million. So far, only 10 million. Please advise retiring staff or those that are about to retire. You come and we talk about annuities. It is the best thing to do as you enjoy your dignified. This product can guarantee you a dignified retirement, the product of annuities. Midterm benefits, we told you last year we paid out a total of 11 billion. So far, we have paid midterm benefits of 1.6 billion. So in total, so far we have paid benefits of 10.5 billion against 25 from last year. Investment income, again, you can compare. So far from treasury bonds, we have 27.6 billion against 48. Interest on fixed deposits of 97 million. We don't do a lot of those. Dividend income, also we don't do a lot of that, 29 million. Guaranteed fund of 22 million. We have unit trusts in UAP of 1.27 return from that, 1.27 billion. And then from ISEA, a return of 1.1 billion. So that's how the picture is now for your scheme members. You can begin, would advise us maybe before it is too late for the half year. So MURBS trustees again provided expert insights on the Uganda's public service pension bill. I think we communicated about this. The government is in the process of reforming the public pension sector. And there was a bill which is before Parliament, probably has been approved already for those who follow current news. But we're invited and we are grateful to that. We did give our formidable response to that. Key discussion points we had with the honorable MPs were on membership of that scheme, portability of benefits, members, portability of benefits. We mean that even for you, if say you left employment at Makerere and say went to work with another employer, you could actually transfer your pot from this scheme to a new scheme that you'll be subscribing to. So that's what we mean by portability of funds, meaning that you can continue to keep your fund in one pot and also grow that one pot up to the end. So we gave our comments on portability of funds. Then attachment of benefits to debt or tax payment. We did advise that you don't attach benefits to debt or payment of tax We hope our advice was taken. Treatment of unallocated contributions and unclaimed benefits. We also gave our comments there. And then prudent investment strategies for the members of that scheme. So this is how we represented you, just to make sure that you have some confidence or confirmation that indeed that discussion happened. That's a pictorial of how we look like when we went to Parliament. I thank the trustees who went there. Then Data Privacy Month, January 2025, we commemorated this month actively, and the theme was Beyond Compliance, Making Privacy Culture. Please, you can now access the data protection and privacy policy of the scheme on the member portal. Member portal means you have to first log in, you as a member, to access all our policy documents, including this one. These policy documents are public. I know some of you have complained. They are public, but when we talk of public for MURBS, it means the staff of Makerere University. So please make sure you activate your member portal account in addition to checking the status of your port by viewing your member statements. You can access all the scheme policies, including this one. And in that, if you have any complaints or doubts about your data security, please, you can contact us and we'll be able to provide the necessary feedback or advice you may need. So I don't want to speak for too long because people, I think, are more expecting of the package that our expert has for us today. Now, who is our expert? I welcomed everyone, but did not welcome the chief guest for today. Mr. Mukasa, you are a celebrity right now in Makerere, at least for this week, I can confirm, and among members of the scheme, because we have been throwing your photo and profile everywhere. What people are waiting to put for now is to put phase 2, the documentation. But Ronald Mukasa is a financial literacy coach. So what he's going to do today, he has experience in doing so. He is a financial literacy coach, is a team building facilitator, and is a business development professional with 10 plus years of experience in training corporate organizations and small and medium enterprises. So with that profile, for us, we say we have the right person to talk to us. Is not too far from our very young staff, but is also not too far from the not so old staff. So in other words, we are sure the menu prepared for us is all inclusive. Ronald has facilitated numerous capacity building sessions in mindset change. Sometimes this issue of saving and planning for retirement actually is largely also a mindset change. When we talk of purchase annuities, the most responses we have got, you can see are largely mindset change issues. Why would I buy an annuity when I can? My money is going to be held with one company, and then it starts, until you live that life 5 years down the road, that's when you realize, oh, maybe it is true. So we're happy to have someone who has that kind of experience, so has experience in mindset change, strategy, HR management, financial literacy, and business growth. He's also a regular commentator on personal finance and business management on some of the popular TV stations we have here, like NTV and NBS Uganda. So you may have seen him already. Some of us, we have seen many people on TV, but we have never seen them physically. So we are happy to have you here talk to us, Mr. Mukasa. Qualifications, I will not mention his qualifications because there are so many, and some people think their qualifications scare. I leave him to use that card the way he wants, but I will pick out one very important one, is that Ronald is an alumni of this university, having done a Bachelor of Science in Statistics here at Makerere University. So I don't know, maybe I could have told you, I hope not. But he has worked with big clients. Probably this is going to be the biggest you have worked ever with. Yeah? But the other clients he has worked with include DFCU, KCCA, UNRA, UCC, MTN Uganda, UNDP, Nile Breweries. So we joined that club. Please, we are confident. We are expecting a lot. Please, let's put our hands together to welcome Mr. Ronald Mukasa to speak to us. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. How are you doing? I'm very excited to be here. Prof, thank you so much for that kind introduction. The people you are seated between, I know both of them very well, and I'm excited to see them. When I was invited to Makerere, my mind went back to the time I spent here. Some of my favorite years were spent in this hall down here. Is it down here? No, it's down here. In Nkrumah. And when I was invited to come and share on this subject, I felt so honored. I'm glad that you chose me, and I'm so honored to be here to talk about a subject which I believe is close to many of our hearts. Money is one of those very interesting subjects, and I believe why it's very interesting is because it is one which you fully understand when you are going through it. When you are going through it. When I was here, I didn't have children. I have more respect for January nowadays because I have children, isn't it? So when I was in school, I didn't worry about January. January came and it was a fun time for me. Right now, as a father, January comes and I worry. I say, where is the school fees going to come from? So when you think about money, that's what makes it unique. And today we want to discuss a topic called retirement. Retirement is an interesting topic because it is a topic which we don't know exactly how to prepare for nowadays, isn't it? How many of us saw an article I think 3 weeks ago, and which said that jobs of USAID funded organizations at risk? Did we see that article in the newspapers? It was a headline. Now, can you imagine for a moment being told today that your job has ended? It's over. You possibly work in one of the most stable employers in the country right now, because the employers who choose that they can end your work at a moment's what? Notice. So when we discuss the topic called retirement, it is kind of very unique right now because of the kind of the volatility of the workplace. The workplace is very volatile. And I hope that as we go through our conversation today, we can take a moment and really appreciate how we can walk this journey at a very individual level. Allow me to start by thanking your leadership. Please give your leadership a big hand clap. I don't know whether you noticed when Professor was speaking, he said that your principal or your chief sponsor is up to date. That means your money is in the what? Is in the account, isn't it? Shouldn't we be clapping for that? It's such a big moment when a fund like this one is actually up to date, because the first thing we worry about is the money there. But did you see a number called 13.4? Did we see that number? 13.4. I hope we all saw it. In the presentation, Professor, you skimmed over it. If I was the one presenting, I was going to only write 13.4 because I hope members saw it. Because it is such a powerful statement. In this economy, to return 13.4 on a fund like yours is spectacular. So allow me to just request you to clap for your leadership, your trustees, for being trustworthy people and delivering the 13.4%. Those are not ordinary things, because we know that sometimes meetings like this are discussing problems which are beyond us. The fund doesn't exist. We are having problems of leadership. That is not the problem we are discussing. Today we are discussing your own personal finances. So I'll give you a brief about myself. As I've mentioned, I'm a financial literacy coach. I have the privilege of having spent the better part of the last 13, 14 years working very closely with small and medium businesses, working closely with Ugandans, specifically in the space of personal finance. I work with an institution called Enterprise Uganda, where I lead operations. I also run a farm called Geuka Africa, and we do personal financial training specifically in that farm. And I am a student of money. I've spent the last 15 years trying to understand why is money complex. And I'll tell you why. I was a statistics, and the first job I was given was with one of the audit firms. I was so excited. The audit firms came and put us in the main hall up there, and I was one of the people privileged to get the job. And after getting the job, they were paying us what seemed like a very good amount of money. I felt like I was the highest paid person I knew, at least amongst my friends. And they were paying us we were taking home about 500,000 shillings. And I remember that moment, I felt like this money is just too much. And why did I feel that way? I was living at home and I was paid 500,000 shillings, and my parents hadn't thrown me out of house. So I was living, our home is somewhere on Rubaga Road, very close to the city. And that 500,000 shillings was a big deposit. And the first decision I made when I got my 500,000 shillings was to leave home. So I left home, like all fathers tell their children, go and become a what? A man. So I indeed went and became a what? Man. So I left home, and since I was living on Rubaga Road, you could literally walk into the city. However, when I left, I started living in Mutundwe, and I got my first two expenses. The first expense was rent, because I was no longer living at what? At home. Half of the money went to rent. The next expense was called transport. So I had to transport myself to the workplace. And within a couple of months, I noticed that my salary was not enough. And I started telling my boss that I think this thing can't work. What can 500 do in Kampala, isn't it? Now, I want you to turn to your neighbor, especially those of you in the room, and tell them what was wrong with that decision. Was it a good decision? My mother here says that it was a perfect decision. I became a man, I left and went and faced the what? The world, isn't it? How many people disagree that it wasn't a good decision? There's one hand at the back. Why? Yes, sir. But I had not developed myself to be what?
No, to spend all that money.
I had not developed myself to spend all that what? All that money. Now, friends, we need to think about it very carefully. This is a young man who has just got a salary, which he didn't have, isn't it? And his first decision is to take 400,000 shillings out of the 500, give to someone else, isn't it? And I want to tell you, I'm the last born in my family. I wasn't chaste, but I needed to become a what? Man. My question to you is, who had to teach me about money, aside from life? Pardon? Who had to tell me that there is something wrong with that decision? And I'll tell you why the decision was wrong. I was living in a place where I didn't have transport and I didn't have rent. I actually could have taken that 400,000 and given it to my parents, but I gave it to a what? To a landlord, isn't it? And from that moment on, everything was a struggle, isn't it? Now, I want to submit to you that as we start this conversation, it is possible that you can live your entire financial life, but the only lessons you have learned are from life. No, we didn't get a structured class. No one challenged me to say, why don't you start a small saving with that 500,000, isn't it? And I didn't have children. I didn't have responsibility. We're on the same page. And as the journey keeps moving, you quickly notice that it becomes tougher and tougher. Today, your scheme has a voluntary scheme, isn't it? But when we say that, can you add 5%? People say, where is 5% going to what? Come from, isn't it? Not that the 5% wouldn't get the 13.4 benefit, but you are caught up in a very difficult chain. Some people call it the rat what? Race. Are we on the same page? So as we have this conversation, I want you to reflect on yourself as an individual, not as the scheme, but as an individual. So let's go. So our title, I don't know whether the slides, right? So, right, there they go. Good. So the first question I want to ask you, should one retire? We make an assumption that we should, but should we retire? How many say we should retire? How many say no, we shouldn't retire? At least there are people who believe they shouldn't. What? It's an important question. The university says you retire at 60, at 65, at 70. What do you say? Do you agree with the university? Because the university can retire you from this job, but should you retire? Are we on the same page? As we discuss retirement, I want to start with that central question. Should you what? Retire. There are many here who believe when the university announces that 60 has reached, you have served your nation and that is it. Are we on the same page? There are those who are still in this room who believe that when the university announces that 60 has reached, you will quickly say, now let me start a new journey on my what? On my own. So as we start the conversation on retirement, the first central question I want you to ask yourself and answer it for yourself. How will you behave when the retirement what? Comes? When I was finishing my final year here, I finished my final year in 2005. My mother retired that year, and I'm the last born. So when she was retiring, she called all of us together. You know, when someone is about to tell you, my life has ended. So she called all of us together. She said, you people have worked hard. I've educated all of you. Even Ronnie here is in what? He's finishing university. I have finished. It seemed like she was dying. That's how the speech went, isn't it? That was 2005. 20 years later, she's still going strong. Have you appreciated that point? So don't be deceived. Retirement is such a long period of time. It is long. It is long. And you need to ask yourself, should I what? Retire. So on our journey, there are a couple of things which we need to get done. Most of us, you need to educate your children. Most of us, you need to build a home. Most of us, you say, you know what, I need to get a job. Most of you have, all of you here, you are here because you have a what? A job. But I wanted to paint a picture that these basic things, sometimes retirement comes and actually you haven't ticked the boxes. Are we on the same page? A box like a home. The home may not what? Exist. And that creates a problem. Why does it create a problem? It creates a problem because the home is not what? It's not there. Some of us might have the privilege of having a house here at the university. Very few now do, I think. But if the privilege is there, where exactly do you go when you what? They are very basic questions. And as we reflect on this topic, it is critical that as an individual, you ask yourself, have I answered these what? These questions. The other one I want to take interest in is this thing called debt. Are you going to retire with a loan? Are you going to retire with the what? With the loan. One of the things we are going to talk about today, we are going to discuss and say, if the loans are there, you need to find a way of making sure they what? They disappear. Because you can't retire with them. And if you do, it's a dangerous journey which you are what? Which you are on. So the other idea I want to share with you is that you are in the pinnacle of knowledge in this country. In spite of which university someone goes to, all of us, we know what Makerere, the brand of Makerere means, isn't it? That means that all your relatives know that you work with what? With Makerere. So even when you go back to the village, they ask you, how is Makerere? In spite of the job you do. Are we on the same page? And that means that your retirement is going to be assessed as a Makerere employee. We would have forgiven you if you are coming from another place, but we are going to watch you very closely. So you worked at Makerere for 30 years. How comes you are having trouble buying a newspaper? And by the way, those are not going to be my words. Every village you go to has a village drunkard. Do you know the village drunkard? Every village has a village drunkard. Now, the village drunkard knows that you work in Makerere, isn't it? And every year he does some monitoring and evaluation on you. He knows you are growing. So every year when you come back, he says, how are things in what? In Makerere. But he's also watching whether some trees are growing on your land, whether a house is coming up on your land. He's watching carefully, isn't it? So imagine the speech the village drunkard will make if you return to the village and you join him in his life, isn't it? Because the village drunkard has nothing, and everyone in the village knows that he has nothing, isn't it? We talk about him, that's the village what? Drunkard. However, the village drunkard will be surprised that you are having nothing with him. Do you get it? Because if the village drunkard has nothing, he asks you, do you have anything? You say, I also have nothing. He will say, why did you go through Makerere to have nothing like me? So the village drunkard expects you to have what? Something, isn't it? However, if you appear and the village drunkard does nothing and you have joined him and you are in Makerere, he's going to see, you say, education is useless. He has nothing. I also have what? Nothing. Are we on the same page? So next time you are looking for your M&E officer on your personal finances, it is the village drunkard. He's watching very carefully about how you are moving. He looks at you and keeps saying what progress has been what? Has been made. Because for all of us, you have reached the promised what? Land. You need to understand that this job you hold, for most of us, it is what we are asking for, isn't it? So when you talk about people who are in this space, in the academia, this is the top. This is where you go to the what? So you are living in the promised land. We need to be able to see that even in your retirement, you actually live a life as one who lived in the what? In the promised land. So there are three questions which we are going to discuss today. The first question is, shall I make it? Some people's approach to retirement is that I will not get there. They say, why worry about retirement? I may not what? Make it. And it's valid. By a show of hands, how many of us know what Uganda's life expectancy is? I know there are statisticians in the room, but what's Uganda's life expectancy? Okay, for the people who didn't put up their hands, how many of you think Uganda's life expectancy is 50? Vote, the people who didn't put up their hands. How many think it's 50? How many think it's 55? How many think it's 60? How many think it's 40? There are some people who think it's actually much less. Uganda's life expectancy today, this question of shall I what? Make it, is 60 what? 6. Now, I want this to be a very practical session. So I want you to take out your phone and you get 66 and subtract your age. Those of you who are quick mathematicians, you can do it in your head. Have you got the number? Has the number locked in your mind? What age is it? Some of us, it is 16. Some of us, it is 20. Some of us, it's 20 what? 5. Now, for us to appreciate why we have this conversation, I want you to appreciate that you, who is not an average Ugandan because you work with Makerere University, you are 15 years away from the life what? Expectancy. Now, the next question you need to ask yourself is, which side of the life expectancy do you think you will fall? Do you think you will go up to 80? Because these things are averages. That's what the statisticians tell us, isn't it? So chances are very high that you may actually live until 20. Has that sunk in? You will be around up to 20 what? 50. And that's for someone who is 50 years old now. You will be around up to 20 what? 50. If you are going to be around up to 2050, you will see a Kampala which has started to look like Lagos today. Kampala's population will possibly be the population of what? Of Lagos. You are going to be alive. And why this is important is because many people think it's not an important topic. But retirement is an important topic because the academics here who you have, the experts at population growth, are telling us that chances are very high that you who are in the room, you will be around in 2050. And that's the spectrum you are planning for. If you are 40, you could be around up to 2060. And for me, when that sinks in, you appreciate that chances are very high that you will make it to what? Retirement. You will be there. And the fact that you will make it, that is why the conversation we are having today is important. What package will you have? What package will you have? That's the question we are here to ask. Because the truth is, the evidence shows you will be what? You will be there. So if we are going to make it to that point, we need to challenge ourselves and know that actually when they tell us about things like boosting the package which you have, they are telling us that when this time comes, we need to be better prepared. That number there, I hope it sticks. 66. Are we there? It's a very important number. So, what do we need to do to be able to make it? First thing is to be healthy. I'm told your last session you talked about what? Health. It's an important thing. Health is a personal finance issue. Actually, being healthy in your old age may be the best investment you will make. And that being healthy means that you do it right now. Are we on the same page? So being healthy is important. And we talked about it in the last session. The next thing which is important is strengthening relationships. This is also an investment in your retirement package. And I hope that the next session discusses this specifically. Friends, one of the reasons why you need to treat your family well is because they are the only ones who will be around in your retirement. And no matter which title you have, you could be professor and this university will forget you. There are professors who sat in that office and now they can walk in and you don't recognize them. And they were here. In the 90s, they were the top dogs, isn't it? And today you don't what? Recognize them. So as you plan for your retirement, you need to invest in your relationships. And I'll speak specifically to men. Us men, we are the ones who don't do this thing very well. Have you noticed that most children, even boys, they look after their mothers? Have you noticed? Even the boys who are in the room, many men in this, you send money to your what? To your mother. So if you are a man, you are an endangered species. Because if you don't treat your wife well, your children will send a ticket to your what? You know, some of your children are going to be very successful. They will go and live in the US. But they will send a ticket to their mother to visit. Your ticket won't come. Actually, the only way you get onto the list of people to go is how you treat their mother, isn't it? Because their mother is going. But will you be part of it? Friends, we need to understand that why does this fit into this conversation? It fits into this conversation because if you don't manage the relationships, even though you have the money, retirement will be what? Painful. Are we on the same page? So you need to deposit in here. Make sure that the relationships are working. Keep some friends. Keep some friends. The people who know you before you had all your titles, they are very important because they are the people who you work with. Invest in this social capital. It is actually good retirement planning. The second question we need to ask is, what shall I do? This is another very important question. It goes back to the first question I asked you, should you retire? Friends, we need to understand that since retirement is long, you need to find something very clear that you can do during your retirement. Sometimes that thing may actually be able to bring money. Most of us, we are very passionate about agriculture. If you're going to do agriculture, this is the time when you start it. So that you say, during my retirement, that is what I will what? I will do. So what shall I do? That question is answered now. It's part of your retirement planning. What shall I do? If I said I'm going into business, can I go into business? Have I started something now which I can be able to join? Most of us may not choose to do. Some people choose to say, I'm spending my entire retirement with my grandchildren. It's valid. But that means you have a good relationship with their parents, isn't it? So you need to determine what you shall what? And make sure that that question is answered. One of the challenges of being within the walls of this great university is that everything can become about the university. And you find that all your life rotates around this place. And my challenge to you is very simple. If you have said you are going to retire into the village, is the village willing to receive you? Because you may think the village is ready for you, but it sent you away a long period of time. If you said you are going to retire into church work, is the church willing to receive you? This is critical because if it is not done now, you are not doing good retirement planning. So the third question, which is going to be the gist of our conversation, is shall I afford it? Shall I afford it? Now, friends, one of the big challenges which we have is that very few people can afford retirement. NSSF, which is the biggest fund within the country, the statistics from NSSF show that within 18 to 24 months, the retirement package has been spent fully. 18 to what? This thing which we have been collecting for 30 years, within 18 months, it is what? It is gone. And friends, nothing is more difficult than knowing that it was there and you have eaten it and you have finished it and now you are facing life. You are facing life. That's what the statistic is. Now, the question you need to challenge yourself with, are you going to be part of those numbers? Because 18 to 16 months, 18 to 24 months, it disappears. Now, some people say that I'm not very worried. My children will look after me. It's a good argument because your testimony that you look after parents, most of you seated in this room are the children who look after your parents. But I came to you not with very good news. I came to tell you about the generation you are raising. This one which you are what? Raising. This new generation you are raising will be very surprised if you are planning to look after them. I know most of you, and I'll tell you how you test whether it's working. How many of us grew up in a household where it was okay for you to volunteer your bed when a guest came to sleep on? Wave your hands. I know most of us. Most of us grew up in households where if visitors came from the village, you withdraw from the room and you go to the sitting room, isn't it? Because the visitor has what? Has come, isn't it? How many of you have children who are willing to volunteer their beds when a visitor comes? Be honest with yourself. Do your children volunteer their beds? They're saying, Mommy, what's up? What do you mean that a visitor is taking my bed? And why are they staying with us anyway? Isn't it? Most of you know that you grew up in households where your parents, where you grew up with some people, and you didn't know that whether they were your brothers or they were not your brothers, isn't it? The household was a big what? Household. The household has shrunk now. It's a nuclear family. Now, I want you to reflect for a minute. This generation you are raising, how will it understand when you make a call that you need money for malaria? Will they understand? Be honest with yourself. Just think about your 4 children. Who is going to send the money? Because that's plan B. I may not organize my package, but my children will send something. Now, I personally believe that one of the privileges of life is to be able to share money. And most of us have that joy of giving money to our parents and our relatives, isn't it? However, for the generation you are raising, you need to be honest with yourself that it will be very surprised if they thought that that was your retirement plan. They will not agree with you. They will actually be honest with you. So that what did you do when you were working? You say, but I paid school fees. Say, but that was your responsibility. That was your what? And you'll be a very angry old man. You'll be a very angry old man. You say, these children of nowadays, do you know how I suffered? Yes, you suffered. But you suffered for your children, and they will suffer for their children also. So you need to honestly know that retirement planning has totally changed. The retirement planning actually of many of our parents was that if I can have 5 degrees in my house, I am safe. And for them, it worked. They said, I have an engineer, I have a doctor, I have a lawyer. They looked at us, for lack of a better word, like small rental properties. Each person can bring something. We have worked. But the next generation, that is not the what? Plan. Now, friends, when we talk about shall I afford it, what we are actually saying is that the plan has shifted from the outside to the inside. You need to have a game plan as an individual. The plan has to be there. It has to be your what? Your plan. And that's what I want to talk about most of today. That the plan can't be externalized. We can't say that the plan is my family will look after me. If they do, God bless them. But if they don't, the responsibility is what? Is yours. That's at the heart of the message we are having today. So, personal finance is 80% behavior, only 20% head knowledge. The knowledge of this thing which they are telling us, annuities, saving, very simple math. Compound interest, very simple math. But what we are dealing with is actually a behavioral challenge. Professor called it a mindset challenge. That is the battle. I'll give you an example. How many of you have heard about cryptocurrency? About cryptocurrency. How many of you have invested in cryptocurrency? Have you noticed there is no one in the room? How many of you have invested in land? Are we there? Put up your hand if you have invested in land. Most of us have invested in land. How many of you have invested in a treasury bond? Now, why is it that in the room, the majority of us have invested in land? Very few have invested in a treasury bond. Yet this fund, the bulk of its money, I don't know whether you saw when Professor was presenting, the bulk of its money came from treasury bonds. Why do we know that the bonds work and they are giving us a return, yet none of us has put our money? Why do we think so? Isn't it fascinating? We saw the presentation of Professor, isn't it? And he said that the majority of money is in what? Bonds, isn't it? We made, I think the number I remember is 14. What was the number? It's a big, big number. The return was in what? Bonds, isn't it? Yet, even with that knowledge, our behavior is completely different. All of us invest in land because that is what we are native to. So when you tell someone I'm investing in land, we understand you. If you tell someone you are investing in a bond, you have to shift an entire mindset, get them to believe it. Now, it doesn't matter that whether bonds work or they don't. They do. They're what have given your fund a big return, isn't it? But at an individual level, for you to ever get money, 10 million shillings, and buy a bond on your own is a mindset shift. Are we on the same page? So have you understood this? Someone can come and show you the numbers. The numbers work. Bonds are very good investments. But we will not behave that way because personal finance is a behavior what? So the mindset is what you are battling with. As we walk through this entire conversation, your biggest battle is a mindset battle. You are battling whether you believe. They will tell you that there is voluntary, you can put in money voluntarily, and it's returning 13.4%, but the behavior will completely be what? Different. So, for example, you have colleagues who allow their salary to spend a week on the account. And you also have colleagues in the same office where the salary can't spend 2 hours on the what? On the account, isn't it? And they earn the same amount of money. It's not an income issue, it is a behavior issue. So at an individual level, your battle is with your personal behaviors, because all of us have personal behaviors. And those personal behaviors are challenging. So you are battling a behavior challenge, not a knowledge challenge. What are we chasing? We are chasing something called financial independence. The status of having enough income to pay one's living expenses for the rest of one's life without having to be employed or dependent on others. Now, I was doing this session for one of the banks in the city, and after the session, a driver in that bank came and talked to me. I said, you know what? I think I am approaching financial independence. I said, explain it to me. He said, you know, I earn 600,000 shillings. That's what they were taking home. He said, but I've managed to build 5 mizigo. How many? 5. The mizigo are in an L form, like this and like that, isn't it? These 4, I rent them out at 150,000 shillings each. This long one here is where I stay with my what? With my family, isn't it? How many mizigo does he have? What is his rental income per month? Pardon? 600,000, isn't it? 150 times what? 150 times 4, isn't it? So he's earning 600,000 shillings. What was his salary? Have you noticed what he has achieved? That even though the bank said we are having restructuring and we are outsourcing drivers, who would panic more, him or his MD? Who would be more worried about the news of restructuring? Who is more worried? The what? The MD is absolutely worried, and the MD has a right to be worried, because the MD also takes home 40 million, isn't it? But to be able to do what his driver has done, he needs to build 40 apartments, isn't it? And find 40 good Ugandans who pay their rent on time to give him 40 million. His children go to school, the MD's children go to school, isn't it? They go to international what? School. The driver's children also go to school at his what? 600. Whose children will be more worried when there is a restructuring? Whose children? The MD's children are worried because the school fees, $5,000. Are we on the same page? So it has nothing to do with your income. We need to chase that number. I've had the privilege of doing many of these sessions. I rarely find a Ugandan who wants to become Sudir. Very few. But I want a building on Kampala Road. Very few Ugandans. Actually, the only Ugandans I find who want to become Sudir are these young people. Whenever I come to do sessions for your students, they are saying, no, me, I'm becoming Sudir, isn't it? For us who are a bit older, we are a bit more conscious. We say, no, as long as I can be able to look after my costs and live a dignified life, I will be what? So I want you to turn to your neighbor and ask them, how far are you from the driver? Have you achieved what the driver has achieved? Are we on the same page? You need to understand that that driver has done something which is spectacular. But he can walk away from his job and his children will not notice that he has lost his job. If he has managed to fit his life within that 600,000 shillings, he can be able to walk away and peacefully run the same quality of what? Life. That's what we are talking about what we want to happen in retirement. What you want to happen in retirement is very simple. If you have been earning 1 million shillings here, at the university, and you have money to educate your children, you have money to do all those things. All you want when you finish is that people don't know that you have retired. Because the 1 million keeps coming, isn't it? You keep masquerading in Makerere and say, you people have gone to work. They retired you, but you are comfortable, isn't it? But how comes that it could be very sad if your children and your family notices that day you are retired? You have been coming home with a loaf of bread. That's the first day a loaf of bread doesn't what? Doesn't come. Have we understood what we are trying to chase? What we are chasing in the retirement journey is that specifically, that we achieve this thing called financial what? And colleagues, I will submit to you, nothing is more difficult. It is tough to get to that point. It's tough to get to that. So that's why most people, when they retire, you have to downgrade. If you had a car, you go back to the taxi. You have to keep going down. You can't maintain the quality of life you had. So that is the goal. And I wanted to make that very clear. Now, for you to be able to achieve this success, you need to have an offensive and defensive strategy. How many of us here, you like football? You enjoy football? Football lovers, please put up your hands, a couple of them. Yeah. Now, this question is for the people who didn't put up their hands. How many of you, you don't have anything for football? They are ones I wanted to explain to. But do you know any football player? What name comes to mind? For the people who don't like football, which names do you hear in football? Pardon? I hear Messi. Which names? Ronaldo. Which names? Onyango, yes. Onyango for sure. But chances are very high that if you don't enjoy football, the names which you hear are names of strikers. That's usually what you hear. You hear of Ronaldo, Messi, Saka. They are people who score what? Goals. In your financial journey, you have to behave like a football team. You need to score, that's offensive, and you need to avoid being scored. That is what? Defensive. Now, for you to retire well, you need to play good offensive and good what? Defensive. You can't say, I will only defend. You can't win. You have to play good what? Offensive. What is offensive? Talk about offensive first. Offensive is what you are here to do. You are in Makerere to play offensive for your personal finances. So that money comes into the what? The pocket. It is critical that when you are here, you do everything possible to make sure that money is coming into your what? Your pocket. And I'll challenge you here. We need to understand that money coming in, the greatest gift is work. You graduate over 40,000 students, isn't it? Every year. What is the biggest worry as they walk out of here? What is their biggest worry? What is your biggest worry as the people who have educated them? Isn't it the same worry? You're saying, I had a class of 100. Where are they going to what? To go. Are we on the same page? So when you have work, you need to understand that you have a gift. And friends, part of personal financial management is making sure that when you are working, you squeeze all the juice out of the opportunity, isn't it? How many of you have ever seen someone who chews a sugar cane and when he throws it out, it falls into pieces? Those are people who know how to eat a sugar cane, isn't it? You know, some people eat a sugar cane, they throw it there, they steal juice. But some people, they eat it, it comes out, it is in what? When you are here to work, you have to squeeze all the juice out. Are we on the same page? So what is the message here? You are not here to work for your boss. You're not here to work for your supervisor. You are here to work for who? For yourself. And how do you squeeze all the juice out? The strategy is very simple. Give value, pursue excellence, and continuously what? Improve. Do you see the 4 people there? Who is the first one? Who is the second one? Mondi is a Kenyan comedian. Who is the third one? Dr. Mitch, isn't it? Who is the 4th one? Who is the 5th one? Warren Buffett. All these people share one thing in common. They are very good at what they do. And they are all paid. I'm going to tell you a story about the guy in the middle, Dr. Mitch. Dr. Mitch was here. He was one of the first people to work in media. You know, they used to live in Livingston. When my older brother was here, they were in the same hall. So, Dr. Mitch is actually a veterinary doctor. However, he went into the media space. So at my workplace at Enterprise Uganda about 10 years ago, we had a youth conference and we wanted to get the best MC in the city. We settled on 3 people and we settled on Dr. Mitch. I was the coordinator. So I went to Dr. Mitch. I told him, Mitch, it's you we want to be our MC. He said, I will be available. He asked me many questions. I took him through. Finally, I asked him, Dr. Mitch, how much shall it be? He told me it shall be 5. I told him 5 what? He said 5 million shillings. I told him, Dr. Mitch, you are coming at 6 and at 10 you will have finished. He said it will be 5 million shillings. I went back to my boss. My boss is a guy called Ochichi. Some of you may know him. Ochichi is a high energy guy. So I told Mr. Ochichi, Mitch is coming, but he wants 5 million shillings. Mr. Ochichi picked up the phone, talked to Mitch for about 15 minutes. After talking to him, he put down the phone. He said, you know what, Ronald? We are paying Mitch 5 million shillings. I told him, Mr. Ochichi, it is 5 million shillings. He said, yes, we are paying him 5 million shillings. Now you need to understand why this was very painful to me. Because I am also a very hardworking staff. Me, I'm very hardworking. I was working for a whole month. I wasn't getting what? This African was coming for one evening. And he was picking how much? 5 million shillings. Indeed, he came. We were at the Renzori Ballroom. It was amazing. Everything was great. He did a great job. He would switch from English to French. We had about 23 countries in the room. It was amazing. Everyone said, this is top class. We didn't expect this in Uganda. We were happy. 2 days later, I took Mitch the check of 5 million shillings. I gave it to Mitch. He received it. I said, Mitch, you have taken it. He said, I've taken it. 5 million shillings. And in that moment, I noticed one of the most important lessons about personal finance. That if you are the best at what you do, you will always be overpaid. Should I say it again? If you are the best at what you do, you will always be overpaid. Friends, you need to understand that the job you hold is your key to winning in money. If this university here has an estates department, there is another university which also has an estates department. If you are the best estates manager, they will look for you. They will call you yourself and say, it is you we what? We want. It doesn't matter what the job is. And one of the biggest mistakes we make in personal finance is to be average at our workplace. Because it destroys your opportunity to squeeze juice out of it. That evening, I got a lesson about money. This fellow took My entire, more than my pay in a month, he took it in one what? One evening. And I want to tell you, it doesn't matter what your job title is here. There is someone paid 5 times your salary in this world. Sometimes 10 times. If you are lecturing here, you are a professor here, the question you need to ask yourself, is that the University of Malawi available? Are you the visiting lecturer there? Is news going around the whole of the country that, the whole of Africa, that if you want the best plant scientists, they are seated in what? In Makerere. Because people will send you a ticket. They will put you into a hotel room and they will pay you a lot of money in 1 week to come and talk to them. Are we on the same page? If you are the one in charge of cleaning this hall, are people in the main building asking for you? As the vice chancellor taken interest, they say the halls are average, but the person who cleans Yusuf Lule, they are exceptional, isn't it? How many of you have ever, and no matter what the job is, if you are cleaning, you clean in such a way that the professor who comes to teach says, you know what, can you also pass by my home and clean it? Because the way you clean is what? It's separate. The professor will give you 50,000. That's how you get the money into the what? Pocket. So before we discuss saving, the first thing you need to ask yourself, are you 100%? Ask your neighbor, are you operating at 100%? People are not turning to their neighbors. They are looking at me. Are you operating at 100%? Because I can promise you, one of the quickest ways of getting money into your pocket is by improving your performance. There are people who have been in this university who have gone out and they have taken professorships in certain places. And they are paid amazing amounts of money. Why? The marketplace is very fair. If you are excellent, we look for you. But you also need to understand that the marketplace is brutal on the average person. This new marketplace, have you people heard what is happening in USAID programs? These people who, they are saying, this work, you were 5, can't 2 people do it? Are we on the same page? It's happening. The marketplace is brutal on the person who is average. But it is very rewarding on the person who is excellent. What do you do as an individual? You say, I'm going to be super. Now, I don't know what job you do. All of us come from different departments. But make sure that news is going around the university, that if you are looking for an electrician, this is your guy. And if it needs you to go back for more training, go for it. But make sure that you are excellent. Because excellence helps money come into the what? That is how we score. Sometimes you can't save because there is nothing to what? To save. But don't leave money on the table. Don't leave money on the table. There is money which is there for you, but they only give it to you if you are what? If you're excellent. Are we on the same page? Allow me to turn gears to the defensive, which will be our final part. The defensive side, on the other hand, is different. It's about making sure that money doesn't leave your what? Your pockets. For those of us who are football lovers, even though you score 5 goals and the opponent scores 6, you will lose a game. So what we need is to make sure that this hard-earned money which has come into the pockets, we allow it to stay. Do you know why we are all gathered here? We are gathered here because our money is still there, isn't it? When we look at the statement, the money is what? It's there. But the question which you have to ask yourself, where did the rest go? Because they took 5%, you took 95. But when we ask you about the 95, say, you leave me alone. But they need to look after that 5% very well. Do you know you might be the most dangerous person to your personal? No, people say, but is our 5%? You show me a statement. Also, you, I'm going to challenge you. Come here and make a presentation on your 95%. The doctor here, professor here took us through. He said, these are the incomes. These are the expenses. Can you make a presentation on yours? Because the 95% is not there. That's why people, as they approach retirement, you look at these meetings with a lot of seriousness. Say, people, is our money there? The way the administrator is looking, she changed the dress. Isn't that our money? Are we on the same page? The point is that this 5% is being looked after. Don't give a hand clap to your leaders. They're looking after it well. But the person I came to speak to is the one who kept the 95. He's the one we need to deal with. Because that's the only person who needs to change decisions. If they don't change decisions, the 5% won't be enough. It will be consumed in 18 months. Are we on the same page? So, this can be an option. By the way, this is a headline in a government newspaper, isn't it? 1,000 civil servants apply to reduce age. That means 60 approaches and you say, you know what, you people? I'm not 60. Deep down, I'm 49. Okay? That's how I feel. Friends, this idea can cross your mind. Your wife was younger than you. When you change age, now you are younger than your wife. Because they think the moment has come, isn't it? When these moments come, you will say, I might have to reduce the what? You go to the human resource department and say, here is a new birth certificate. Me, to be born in 1962? No, I wasn't. I was actually born in 1971. Because you need a bit more what? More time. When you don't defend now, friends, this idea will cross your what? Your mind. So what traps do I want to warn you about? 7 traps. Trap number 1 I want to warn you about is no plan, no budget. Friends, you can't win on money if you choose to say, whatever comes, let it be. I can tell you I'm an accountant by profession. Even as accountants whose job it is to keep budgets of institutions, we don't have personal budgets. That's why the money can't be enough, because it wasn't enough in the beginning. One of the actions I want you to do is this evening. The first line on your budget is this. They take this money off before you get your salary, the 5%, isn't it? I want you to ask, on my budget, aside from the 5% they take away, how much am I saving? That's a question. And we end up living this thing called paycheck to what? Paycheck. Living paycheck to paycheck means you only live for now. You only live for what? For now. And when tomorrow comes, tomorrow's money has already been eaten. Number 2 is this thing called assets versus liabilities. Where exactly is the money going? I want to share with you 3 items. House in the village, asset or liability? house in the village. Pardon? Some people are saying it's a liability. Some people are saying it's a what? Some people are saying that's where I am going to go when I what? When I retire. We need to understand that the purpose of a village house is multiple. Some people say that's where I'll go when I retire. Some people say when my children come for Kwanjula, that's where we will what? Some of us are actually even planning for when we are being buried. So when people come to bury me, at least they need to find a good house, isn't it? So that you don't embarrass your family when you have left. But don't forget that that house has consumed 40 million, isn't it? 40 million could be in the fund here, but it is in a house somewhere in Ntungam, somewhere in Serere, somewhere in Zombo. Are we on the same page? The money is in the what? Is it an asset? Is it a what? I told you I'm an accountant by profession. I will define for you an asset. An asset is very simple. It doesn't matter what it is. As long as something has capacity to generate a cash flow and hold value which is growing, it is a what? An asset. It's that simple. However, the liability is the opposite. So if you are the one who is paying the person who is sleeping in your house, because you know all your village houses, you have to pay the person who sleeps there, isn't it? So how can it be an asset when it is you paying the person who is sleeping in it? Are we on the same page? Actually, if that house was not on top of the hill in Tungamo, but was in Tungamo town, it would change behavior. You might find a tenant, isn't it? Next question. Education for your children, asset or liability? It's an asset, isn't it? We are an academic institution. We know that education is the greatest asset. The question we need to ask is, whose asset is it? Because as parents, this is where we get a bit mixed up, isn't it? We educate the children and we say we have built an asset. Are we on the same page? And those of you are accountants who know double entry system. So for those of us who are accountants know that an asset, we have something called a double entry system. If something enters into someone's books as an asset, it can't be in someone else's book as an asset, isn't it? It has to be the opposite. So if you think about education, if the parent thinks it's their asset and the child thinks it's their asset, whose asset is it? Because if it's the child's asset, then it can't be your asset at the same time, isn't it? The education is an asset for the person who gets the certificate, not the person who paid for the what? And I want to tell you this one, you need to appreciate, so that you don't become the parent who gets annoyed that your children are not looking after you. Are we on the same page? That thing called education is one of the biggest challenges in our retirement journey as a country. Many people actually believe that if I educate my children very well, I will retire very what? And I have come to put it to you that that is a very dangerous. Some of you have very good children. They will look after you. But I know some of your children, they are going to disappear. And especially for us mothers, you just get annoyed when the boy gets a wife, isn't it? And you start being annoyed at your what? At your daughter-in-law. So she gets the money and he gets all the money and spends it on his what? But I will put the question to you. If your son is sick and your father is sick, who do you take to hospital first? What's the right thing to do? Have we understood the question? Your son is not a bad man. He's just making the right decision, isn't it? So you might have retired to cover life. We will call us Say, but daddy, be strong, be strong. There are many leaves which you can cook and you deal with malaria, isn't it? Cook those leaves, cook those leaves. As he takes his son to IHK, isn't it? He's not a bad son. He's just dealing with the what? So you need to understand that where am I putting my money? Because this is very confusing. Sometimes you find we are doing things which we think are assets. I keep telling people, I know a family which built a house in the village. There were 4 brothers and they built one house. And all the brothers say the same thing. This is my house. So every brother who stands up says, this is my what? My house. But it is one. But I've also seen homesteads where you find 4 houses of the 4 brothers, isn't it? All of them, no one is staying in what? You have to challenge where the money is going right now. Because if it was going into your fund at 13.4%, that's big. But if it goes, and I'm a big fan of education. By the way, not educating your children is equally dangerous because they will become a liability for real. They will start planning for your death. Have you seen it in the newspapers? Where children are saying, but you old man, why aren't you dying? What are you doing at 80? Are we on the same page? Because the only thing they see is your assets. So educating them reduces risk, but it doesn't cause an upset. Are we there? Next one is this thing called the status burden. This is a big one. Please don't get fused with your office. Don't get fused with your office. Don't get fused with your what? With your title. I'm the manager. I'm the officer. I'm the professor. Avoid that temptation. Why shouldn't you fuse with your office? Because when you leave this institution, you will leave the office here. Are we there? So don't let your office get fused with you. For some of us, there are businesses we can't, investments we can't make because we are professors. How will I be seen associating with chicken? Eh? The professor and the chicken, how do they interact with one another? Huh? What kind of conversation will they have? Are we on the same page? And the title runs you over. Say, but professor, why don't you try chicken? Say, may I try things which are serious? Things which have an academic paper which is backing them up. Watch out. Don't get fused with your what? The next one is this thing of playing God. You taking the position of God in your family. Some people call it black tax. Friends, don't be deceived. You are not God in your family. Don't try to solve all the problems. Some of us are very keen. You are paying school fees for an entire village. We agree with you. But also you need to plan for that time when you want to be able to what? Pay. And don't forget, this is a powerful position. You know, when you start getting money, things happen. Your name changes. Even though you are a young man, they start calling you Muzei. Because you are powerful, isn't it? They say, wait for the man to what? Come. Some of you even have already titles which are tied to you. Don't get fused. Are we on the same page? You are not what? Should you give? Should you share? Yes. But don't say that the only thing I do is to solve the what? These are God's children, not yours. They are who? God's children. Don't take his position. Number 5 is this thing called the gambler what? Mindset. I want you to look at that article. Pensioner loses 100 NSSF cash in online deal. Friends, you are not the only ones who know that you have money in this benefit scheme. We also know. And we are preparing good ideas for you as soon as you get it. And we will withdraw it from what? From you. So I want to challenge you. Avoid this temptation. You see the other article, Ugandans lose 60 billion in football Ponzi scheme. This is something called BLQ. But some people think that, this is just young people do this. And money what? Now let me explain to you what happens in money. Most of us, when they tell us that you can be able to earn small amounts of money every month, this 12%, 13%, we say, you can earn that money in just 1 week. How many of you had something called capital chicken? You had capital chicken? Capital chicken had a very simple pitch. Put your money in chicken. First month, 25%. Next month, 25%. 4 months, the money has come. Then you keep earning forever. The gambler in you is activated. So why am I wasting my money with this benefit scheme? Give me my midterm access. And I put it where it can multiply what? Quickly. Leaders, I want you to check where people took midterm access. Because some of it could have gone to capital chicken. And why? The gambler was activated. Are we on the same page? The gambler was what? Now, each one of us, we have a gambler inside us. Someone which says, one of these days, I will get what? Okay. But this destroys retirement. You run with the patient and slow and consistent. This is what your institution offers you here. There's nothing spectacular. It's a slow process of growing your what? Your money. But I want to tell you, this one is right there. 1,500 Ugandans lose 10 billion in online scam. This one had army generals, had police commanders, had professors. They joined together and gave someone 10 billion. And you know, when we are going for these things, you don't tell people. Just come say, manager, give me my thing. Me, I'm going. Me, I know where I'm taking it. Manager gives you the thing, meets you 3 weeks and say, how is the thing? Say, just leave me alone. Kampala is tough. Just leave me alone. This Uganda is very unfair. It becomes a Ugandan problem, isn't it? Yet you picked it yourself, isn't it? The other one which I want us to watch out for is called economic outpatient. Economic outpatient means looking after your adult children way into their adulthood. The child gets a degree. You pay for a master's what? After a master's degree, you pay for what? PhD. After a PhD, the child says, I'm ready to get married. You marry them a what? A wife. After you marry them a wife, they have twins. One of them is your name. You start paying school fees for the what? What have you done? You have given the child economic outpatient. Now, for those of us here who have these children in our household, this was your message. I want you to go and tell them it's time to face the world. As a parent, it's very difficult, but you need to allow the child to face the world. Because if they don't, in your retirement, you'll be paying school fees. Are we on the same page? So one of the things you do to plan is to release this group. This is taken from a book called The Millionaire Next Door, written by 2 guys, someone called Stanley and Danko. I encourage you to read it. Amazing book. This message here is critical because some people, it's not that they don't have enough in retirement, but they have responsibilities of grandchildren, of parents who are alive. It is bad for retirement planning. Final one is debt. Friends, one of the things you can quickly do is to get out of this cycle. In personal finance, the most difficult thing is getting out of debt. Most difficult. Other things are simple. Saving is simple. I'll talk about it in a moment. But the most difficult is getting out of debt. And debt does not start with the bank. Debt starts with family and friends. Then it moves on to workplace colleagues. Are we there? Why is debt a problem? Because debt allows you to live a lifestyle which is not yours. If you live beyond your means, debt is what fills the what? The gap. And friends, as we plan for retirement, as you plan to increase your savings, I want you to have an active plan. Get out of what? Debt. Because if it doesn't exist, I can tell you that when NSSF surveyed what people do with their fund, in the top 5 reasons was repayment of what? It means you save the money, but what it does actually is it repays what? Debts. And that's a painful thing. We can have a long conversation on this, but it's important that you touch on that and you say, this I am not going to do. I like this quote. The rich rule over the poor and the borrower is what? How do you release yourself? Say, every time you borrow, a master-slave relationship is created. Doesn't matter who you borrow from. If you borrow from your father-in-law, he becomes master, you become what? Slave. So you need to have this migration. So let me close with posing a way forward. And I was advised that I might have to mix the language a bit. But what I'm going to do is I'll close and then I will say a few things. This is my proposal. My proposal is called the Masiga model. That from this session, you could decide that you approach your personal finances using this thing called the Masiga model. Masiga is cooking stones. How many cooking stones are there usually? Can you cook on 2? Can you cook on 1? What if 1 is big and 2 are small? Can you cook? All the stones have to be of equal size. Are we on the same page? And what I want you to notice is that one of the problems of our food we have been cooking is that the saving stone has been very what? Very tiny. The spending stone is very what? The giving stone is also relatively big. The food is not what? Cooking. So what we are trying to say is that these 3 things need to happen simultaneously. You don't say that I will start next time. I'm going to ask you, just ask a couple of things of you. Some actions I want you to consider taking. The first action I want you to consider taking is expanding the saving stone. Because usually it is very what? It's very small. Most of us, the stone is, if actually they removed 5%, which they put in this fund, that stone could completely disappear. Are we on the same page? So I'm challenging you that how do we make that stone bigger? And some people say that you don't understand. I have so many expenses. I can't be able to what? To save. I want to give you what we call the 2-letter test. The 2-letter test is very simple. Assuming just after this meeting, you are invited by the university secretary. And the university secretary says, welcome in, sir. Thank you for coming in my office. I have two letters in front of me. One is a red letter, one is a blue letter. In the blue letter is an offer of half your salary. You have been getting 1 million, I'm giving you 500. In the red letter is your termination letter. Today is your last day of work. Which letter do you sign today? Tell your neighbor that me, this is the letter I signed. Has your neighbor told you? If your neighbor said, I signed the red letter, please put up your hand. Huh? You see the red letters? There are some people who have been looking for an opportunity to leave this institution and they haven't got it, isn't it? And they say, if you insult me with half my salary, me, I what? I go. And they exist, they are amongst you. But from the response, it appears the majority of us would sign the what? The blue letter. You could even walk out of the university secretary's office and you call your spouse and say, God has been good to us. I have been offered half my what? My salary. Then your wife will say, but you have gone mad. Why are you celebrating? Have say, wait, I was about to come home. I've been using this example for close to about 12 years now. In the last 5 years, we have had COVID-19. We have had restructuring. Most recently, 3 weeks ago, we had USAID. A new president came and changed the thing. Most people didn't even know that elections were happening in the what? In the US. But when this offer is given, I tell you the majority of us say, thank God for half the salary. My question to you is, how do you say that you can receive half the salary when the university secretary tells you, but you say you can't save? Have you understood my question? Because the university secretary has given you half, you will organize yourself, isn't it? Why do you say that you can organize yourself with half, but you can't organize yourself on your own terms, isn't it? Because what I came to ask you, I came to say that assuming the letter came, what would you do? Most of us would change some things, isn't it? Immediately. During COVID, things happened. Men became very active in the kitchen during COVID. Find a man in the kitchen, he picks up an onion, says, who cut this onion? Who cut this onion? How do you cut an onion and you don't finish it, isn't it? Because we knew that an onion had to cook 3 meals. The half letter had what? So I am submitting to you that there is no one in the room who can say, I can't save a little what? Are we on the same page? None. All of us can save a little what? A little more. So let me make my ask. My ask is very simple. My first ask is going to be, it doesn't have to be big. Just a drop. Just a drop. It doesn't have to be very big. It's just a what? Just a drop. That's my challenge to you. And there are 2 places I want you to consider saving. The first place I want you to consider saving It's going to be in your what? Your fund. I'll talk about it in a moment. The second place I'm going to ask you to consider saving is I'm going to ask you to consider saving money for an emergency. Experts tell us that we should have 3 to 6 months of our salary in an emergency what? Fund. However, I'm going to challenge you to have 1 month of your salary in an emergency what? Fund. Those are my two asks. 1 month of your what? Your salary. Let me explain 1 month to you. 1 month of your salary is saying that if I lost my job today, I have at least 1 month to organize my what? Myself. And most people say it's impossible, but I will tell you that actually emergencies hurt people who are higher up in the value chain more than they hurt people who are lower down. The people who say that, oh, these are the people who hold the lower level jobs, they take emergencies much better. The people at the top, emergencies are crazy. They are real chaotic. So, let me share. The pennies count. So, 1, prepare your family for what? For retirement. It means tell them that one of these days I am going to what? To retire. 2, work on a what? A will. Why do you work on a will? Because even if you have nothing, we are going to fight for it. Are we on the same page? Even if you have nothing, for us who are staying, we are going to what? So solve the problem for us. We are going to fight anyway. We seem like we are sober, we seem like we like each other, but should you die, we are going to fight for your property. And for those of us who have multiple families, it's even more chaotic. So work on those 2. My first ask was maximize your retirement what? Benefit. After my session, I'm going to request someone from the scheme to just come and explain this to you. But it's very simple. I want you to say they take 5%. I am going to add 5% on my own. Voluntarily. I'm going to add what? They have been taking 5%. I'm going to volunteer to add what? What have you done? You have accelerated your retirement fund. I'm going to add 5%. I'm going to add 3%. That's my request to you. That's the action I want you to consider. You saw on your list when they were presenting, voluntary scheme was quite low. Yet you are a very big what? Fund. This evening you may forget everything. But I can bet you that if you make that decision, 10 years from now, you say, I'm glad I made that decision. Because I tell you, your life is not going to change because you have added 5%. Nothing fundamentally what? Changes. But what will happen is that you will double what you are going to get in the 10 years. I was sitting next to my brother. He told me he's retiring in 6 years. And when he said 6 years, for me, this was my message to him. Increase it now. Give it 6 years. You'll be fascinated at what it does. That's your action. Say, I've added 5%. Second action, I'm going to request. I don't know whether you saw all these people. All these fellows here were in the people who were listed. Where you are investing the scheme what? The scheme money. ISAIA, UAP, all of them. That's where you put your money. But why I brought this is my second request. My second request is this thing called an emergency fund. And by the way, a SACCO can work as perfectly. But what I want you to open is a fund of 1 paycheck. One what? 1 month of your salary. Be in a, you put in a unit trust. If you belong to a circle, put it in your what? In your circle. It is an emergency fund. Let me explain to you what it means. What this means is that when you borrow, if you get a crisis today, let's say you lose your job, you have 1 month. But let me explain it to you another way. Many of us, every salary we have gotten thinks that it is the first. Because when it comes to the account, there is no evidence that there was another salary on the what? On the account, isn't it? So every salary which comes, it believes it is number what? Number one. So what I'm saying is that allow the salary of January to meet what? February. Then the salary of February to meet March. When you do that, you take away the biggest risk in your finances right now, emergencies. Why people go to money lenders is because they have to go to money lenders. The child has broken a leg. What do? You have to go to the money lender. Never if you build the emergency, and it's not a simple thing to build. It could take you 6 months, even a year to build. But once you have it, you push chaos and crisis away from you. Those were my 2 asks for today. 1, squeeze all the value out of your what? Your fund. Your action which you need to make is to say, I will put in a little. But secondly, also create a what? An emergency fund. So let me close with this story. How many of us here in the room, you can walk to Ginger now? Put up. There are 2 hands. 3 hands. Those are the people, I don't know the people online, whether they can walk to Ginger. However, let me change the story. Assuming we are seated here, we are in Yusuf Lule, CTF. You see the blocks of apartments outside there? We hear a big boom. They explode. You think it's a joke? Boom. PRC. What? How many stay in the room doing this lecture? We all run out, isn't it? When we run out, we ask what has happened. They tell us rebels have put a big gun in Wandegea, rather in the roundabout of Waise. They are bombing every what? Building. The UPDF has protected that beautiful bridge. You know that beautiful bridge in Ginger? The UPDF has protected that beautiful bridge. If you walk and you cross over to the other side, to Ginger, you are safe, isn't it? However, if you can't walk to Ginger, you are on your own with the what? With the rebels. At that point, how many of us can walk to Ginger? How many can walk to Ginger? Be honest. I believe that when the bomb goes off, all of us in this room, we will walk to Ginger, isn't it? Even our colleagues who are 65, we say, hey, you are with us. Say, no, me, when I was young, I used to walk a lot. I had a lot of energy, isn't it? All of us would walk to Ginger when the bomb goes off. Now, what's the message? The message is very simple. Don't wait for the bomb. The message is what? Don't wait for the what? I came to just deliver that simple message. That start walking to Ginger right now. Is it simple? No. Is it strenuous? Yes. But walk to Ginger on your own what? Terms. If in this room you decide that today I am going, my action of walking to Ginger is to increase My voluntary saving by what? 5%. It's walking to ginger, isn't it? But you haven't walked to ginger when the bomb of retirement, what? Explodes. You are walking to ginger. By the time the bomb goes off, you have already arrived. So that's my challenge to you. It isn't for a lack of opportunity. I could have come here and talked about the many businesses you could do, and possibly I'll have another chance to come and talk about it. But my challenge to you is to say, walk to ginger and walk to ginger on your own terms. Because friends, the bomb will explode. One of these days, I feel like I was in Makerere recently. I went to an institution a couple of days ago to do a session. And the HR at the institution, I said, what's the average age of the people in the institution? Said the average age is 32. Said, interesting. Said, we have the young ones who are 25, and we have the old ones who are over 40. I have never felt so old. I said, me, I'm just over 40. What do you mean I'm the old one? But that's what I am. In her eyes, I was the oldest person in this country as to what? And yet, I feel like I was in Makerere recently. The 20 years have gone. Even your time in that position will come to what? Pass. So your challenge is to walk to ginger right now. Step by step. That's the decision you need to make. Thank you so much for your time.
Wow. Thank you very much, Mr. Ronald Mukasa. Please, let's give him a second round of applause. I'm aware you have burning questions, and we're going to ask those questions. So, following the program, we're going to have two brief testimonies, and then we shall have the question and answer session. And so, without further ado, allow me to invite Miss Namale Florence Jacqueline, our very own retiree, to give us a testimony of how she has planned for her retirement now that she's in retirement. Okay? Yes. How many minutes?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Florence Namale Jacqueline. I worked for Makerere for 28 years in different faculties, different departments, and I retired last year in April. I'm here, I was told, just to give you a testimony of how I'm moving on with the retirement. I thank you, Mr. Mukasa, for those wonderful words and advice for people who are not yet retired. And in my group culture, in my language, there is a saying which says, because those words are for you, not for me. I passed through Makerere and I thank MURBS because I got my money in time. But my advice to you people who are not yet retired, please plan. Plan if you want to live a happy and enjoyable retirement time, you have to plan. As he has said, all those things he has talked about, build your social capital, inform your family, save, Those are the things they used to tell us, and I used to say, my salary is very little. I cannot add. My salary is very little. It is not even enough for me. How can I even save? The truth is, I never added on my savings. But thank God, I am managing, because we thank the human resource. They write to you later, just 6 months before that you are about to retire. But I thank God that COVID taught me a lesson. And I started planning for my retirement. How did I plan for my retirement? I started thinking of what am I going to do. We stayed at home for 2 complete years in COVID. We were not coming to work, but we thank God our salaries were coming on our account. And I really saved that money because I was not spending on transport. I was not spending on food. We had a lot of food. I managed to save 90% of my salary during COVID time. And after COVID, I got my money, which I was saving in the circle. I added it up with the money I had saved from the salary of those 2 years when we were not working. And I bought a farming land on Mitiana Road. Why did I do so? I wanted to do the farming where it is accessible. Me, I stay on Entebbe Road. I'm a person who has been a single mother. My husband died when my children were very young. And I have been the mother, the father, the educator, name it. So my biggest worry after retirement, I said, mu nnyumba bwe mumula emmere kiba kitegeeza tugenda kufa. So I planned and I said, I have never stayed in a village all my life. For me, my father's home is on Kawempe Kutano. That's where I grew up. Our burial place is there in Bujuko. Before you reach Bujuko town, I've never been in a village. So I don't know how to dig because I have never dug. But whether you know how to dig or not, you have to eat. So I said, if there is food in the house, I think I will survive. Praying that God will give me good health. Before COVID, we started going for gym. I said, let him even start working on my health. Because I had started getting pressure, diabetes. I was very serious at the game. Professor there can testify. I said, let me kick out all the diseases from my body so that I will enjoy my retirement. I was very faithful with the gym. And indeed, the diabetes went. And I stayed healthy. Then I had to plan. So by the time I retire, I must have, I'm a very good person, a person who loves matoke. Without matoke, for me, there is no food on the plate if there is no matoke. I looked for a place where it will be easy for me to access. So I went on Mitiana Road. I looked for plots, and I started planting matoke. Why did I plant matoke? All my people around me, I go to church with, my village. Every weekend, every house has to buy a bunch of matoke. And those are the people whom I was targeting to sell my matoke to. So I planted atano ku 10 ne njiteekamu olusuku lw'amatooke, gonja, bogoya, ndizi. God was faithful that year. It rained. And my matoke grew up very well. Before I made a year planting matoke, I started harvesting in the 11th month when I started that garden. So by the time I reached retirement, I had already purchased another one. because all my children had finished studies. And whoever was finishing, I said, "Nkati munaye kati gwe kwata liryo." I'm planning my way also. So last year when I made, last year around October, I started planting another one. As I took now, every 2 weeks I go to my garden, I get like 7 bunches of matoke. Then you'll find also enkotaya bogoya or gonja. Who are my clients? My fellow people whom I go to church with, my neighbors. I just tell them that I put on the WhatsApp group, you people, on Friday, I'm bringing matoke. And they will so drop a bunch in my house, drop a bunch at home. Give me also gonja. I need also two biwago of bogoya. That is how I have survived, and I'm very happy. Also, what I did before I retired, I used to have a 4-wheel drive car. I said, I think I no longer need this 4-wheel car. Let me get a smaller car with the fuel consumption, which is lower, so that I cut costs. And that is what I did, but which has enough space to put my matoke. When I go to get my matoke, it's like 30 to 40K of fuel. Then I bring my 6 bunches of matoke. I sell the 5 at 25, at 30. And I keep one run me for a week or 1.5. So in my house, there is plenty of food. There is plenty of fruit. I just look for bijanjalo binyebwa, which anybody can do. My children bring. They say, mami ayine mmere naye tayina nva. Genda okulaba nga balese. So people, these words he has said here, start now. If you can, now they have just increased your salaries. You have been surviving without that salary. You can say half of the salary they have given you, you put it on the savings. It will help you a lot when you retire. Plan for your health also. Good for doing it so that you don't fall sick. Be healthy at 60 years and enjoy your money. Because sickness does not knock at your door and you say, I don't have money. Whether you have the money or not, you have to go to hospital. That is when you go to the money lender and you borrow money so that you can go and buy medicine. Do you go for your duiro so that you are healthy? A person who goes for duiro cannot just even the malaria will go when you go for exercises. When it comes, it will not stay. So please, these things are real. There is no one who is not going to retire, whether you like it or not. As you were born, some of you reduce your ages when you come to ask for employment in Makerere. But whether you have reduced your age, whether you have increased it, that time will come and you will retire, you will leave Makerere. You are not going to stay here forever. So plan properly. Have a nice evening.
Thank you very much, Miss Jacqueline. I'll come for, in my language, they call, Gonja is called wete, so I'll come for wete. Yes, and now we're going to have our second retiree. He's also going to keep it very brief. I welcome Mr. Walusimbi Dominic.
Bawummuze bannange mbaaniriza erinnya n'eddoboozi bampita Dominico Walusimbi. nali mukozi mu State Department plumbing section nawummula 2015 omwezi Sebutemba ennaku z'omwezi 12 nja kukozesa Luganda kubanga bannange ab'omu estate abasinga balaba weebali weewaawo bawulira oluzungu tulutegeera naye tetulumanyi nze oluzungu nduwulira naye sirumanyi kubanga nazaalirwa mu Luganda. Bannange abanaatera okuwummula muwulidde ebigambo bingi byogeddwa naye ensobi ze tukola ffenna ng'abakozi tulowooza okwetegeka nga tulowooza nti bwe banaatusasula ssente z'okuwummula lwe tujja okutegeka olowooza okunoonya poloti ozimbewo luumu mu ssente ezo olw'okuba bakulaze nti eriyo miliyoni 15 oba miliyoni 20 z'olina olwo n'oyagala odduke ogende mu kyalo gye wava onoonye akabanja naye nga tosimbyeyo mirandira. Kati nno gano magezi bw'obanga olowooza okuwummula ng'osigazaayo emyaka 5 tandika okugenda mu kyalo osimbeyo amakanda. Mukulu Ronald bw'abadde ayogera alina akagambo k'akoonyeeko agambye mu kyalo eriyo abatamiivu naye omutamiivu akulindiridde ggwe okulaba ng'ozzeeyo mu kyalo era awulira okola mu institution ey'amaanyi Makerere University akutunulira okulaba ki ky'ogenda okugira ki ky'ogenda okukola kiki ky'oggyeeyo naye kiba kya buswavu omuntu avudde mu institution ey'amaanyi bw'etyo otuuke mu kyalo nga naawe ofaanana omutamiivu oli akutunuulira atya n'okukusemberera kubanga obadde mu yunivasite ebbanga lyonna ng'oli mukozi. N'olwekyo kati obutaswaza yunivasite na kitiibwa kyo ky'obaddemu tandika okutegeka otegeke osobole okuba nga ofiitinga mu mbeera y'omukozi abadde mu yunivasite. Weewale embeera ey'okulowooleza mu looni buli kiseera. Nze bwe nawummula nina olunaku lumu lwe nayagala okukaaba amaziga bampola ssente mu Bacyayina erudda wali e Kamwokya neewola emitwalo 80 naye ssente bwe nazeewola ekyamazima obwongo ndowooza bwali tebunnazuukuka nti nja kuwummula era ekiseera eky'okuwummula gye kiri. Ssente nazikozesa bubi ne sibaako kye nziggyamu naye nga baazisala emyaka 2 emitwalo 80 buli mwezi nga bantema emitwalo ndowooza 5 n'ezigwamu nsobole okulikavalinga emitwalo 80. Ssente ziba zaakamala okuggwaawo muto wange n'ajja nanga nti waayi baaba nalabye poloti ya mitwalo 40 naye nga 80 mmaze ogira ki okiri okimalawo nenkwata ku mutwe nga nti ate kibaaba ssente okola Makerere ssente konze munnange ssente sirina nezembadde nazo z'obadde olaba zenkozesa nazeewola bwewozi mu Bacyayina naye zaaweddewo. Eyagula poloti n'agigula emitwalo 40 n'agitereka okumala emyaka 2 n'agitunda miliyoni 12 naye nga yagiguze emitwalo ameka tinange nejjusa nenga nti senga ssente zange ziri saazikozesa bubi nandibadde ndi munene. Lwaki ndeese ekintu kino? nti abamu ku bakozi bannaffe abali wano aba wansi balowooza nti Makerere bawa ssente ntono. Kituufu, kiyinza okuba ekituufu, naye ssente ezo entono zirina we ziyinza okuyambira senga ozuukuka n'oseevinga akatono ako k'oba ofunye. Ladalani okwewola looni n'ogenda mu kikumi n'otandika okunywa obunywi. Looni n'eggwaawo, bagitemye emyaka 5 naye nga ggwe oli mu mwenge. Bwe baba famire yeyambiddwa n'owererako ku mwana, n'owererayo omu oba babiri, abalala ate n'otobaweererera ddala. N'olwekyo bakozi bannange abali wano abatannawummula, mugezeeko okwetegekera. Nze mbagambe nawummula 2015, naye olw'okuba nti bwe namanya nti okuwummula gye kuli ne ntandika okugenda nga nsimba amakanda, ndowooza mundaba sifaanana bubi nnyo. Nfaanana bubi? Bitiisa. Era bwe nkonkonewo omuntu ayinza ogamba nti gwe mwami Walusimbi, naye omuntu omulala oyinza omusanga n'ogamba bane ono nakulanga naye yakawummula emyaka 3 ebweru anaamalako ng'akutabudde. Ekirala kye mbasaba bakozi bannange, tugezeeko okweyonja, tuleme kwejamawaza olw'okuba ogenze mu kyalo gwe n'olowooza nti y'enkomerero. Mukulu Mukasa atubuuzizza nti bw'owummula obeera owummulidde ddala, oba towummulidde ddala, oba owummudde, gezaako okubeera mu kyalo ng'okola emirimu emirala, okole obeerewo. So si kubeera mu maziga. Maama mpummudde, sijja kusobola kukola kino, ndabye sikyazzeeyo kufuna ssente. Nedda, ebintu mu kyalo gye biri by'osobola okukola era n'ojjamu ssente. Bw'oba ofunye akasente olwaleero, Katonda ng'akuyambye nga gy'oli gye wava gye bakuzaala olinawo abantu, gula akatekamu ateeka awaka. Bw'onookagula olwaleero okutuuka mu 27 ojja kuba ofuna ssente kumpi ndowooza ezigatta z'ofuna omusaala wano, kuba bwe kanaazaala Katonda n'akuyamba ne kakuwa liita 40 buli lunaku. Liita 20 buli liita n'ogitunda siringi 1,000. Ojja kuba ofuna ssente. Era ojja kwesanga ng'onyirira. Egwe kunyirira kwange bannange. Bwe ntyo bwe nfaanana, n'olwekyo kye kinyumiriza wano, ne baŋŋamba mbabuulire ku ebyo. Mpakasi bannange mbalengera we muli awo, naye mugende mu maaso mugezeeko okweyimirizaawo nga temulinze retirement. Mwebale nnyo, mwebalire ddala.
Thanks, Mwami Walusimbi. Okay. And now, because we've spent a lot of time, you'll allow us to open up the question and answer session. And if you have any burning questions for Mr. Ronald Mukasa or for the scheme itself, questions are welcome. Please, you can do this by raising your hands. Are there someone there with a question?
Good evening. My name is Kereben Wajira. I work with ICA Life Assurance. I was invited here by Professor Otto. First of all, I would like to thank Mr. Mukasa for the good presentation. And I would want to add and say that in life, we have 2 major risks. One is living longer. Another one is getting incapacitated or dying early. So when you live longer, your savings will restore you. And when you die early, insurance takes over. So for example, at ICA, in addition to the retirement schemes you are doing, you can have some policies that when you are not able to contribute or save, you get some funds or compensation, which can help your family or you to continue. than relying on the one side of certain life if you live longer only. But you can get incapacitated along the way. You may not reach that 65. You got an accident, but you are there, you want to eat. So you don't work with the work, but you need to continue eating. So when you have that policy, for example, it can help you pay you some money, which can help you to continue with your life. So thank you very much, Mr. Mukasa, for that wonderful presentation. Good evening, everybody.
Thank you very much. We shall welcome a question, please. Another question. So I have some questions online. I'm seeing Sarah Siede Tegule. I don't know if you're able to hear me. You raised your hand with a question. Yes, please, Sarah, you can ask the question. Not available? Okay. We have another question from Nicholas. Nicholas Betunje. Please come through with a question. Okay. Any questions here, please? Our dear members, regarding the member sensitization session and the topic, building your retirement nest egg. There are two questions. Huh? Okay.
There is a question we've picked from Professor Constant Obora. He notes that these days there are too many contributions in society. What is your experience with this in relationship to saving? Then another question was from Richard Semuju. I thank Mr. Mukasa for the presentation. I did not get the second saving option apart from the emergency.
Thank you, Juliet. I'm also seeing more questions here online from Bosco Onuru. 10 years to go. Do I give up since it is too late to start voluntary saving? And then which of the following is a better investment vehicle? Annuity or unit trust? Please advise. And then finally, are the AVCs deducted at source if I opted for them? So we have some questions for the MURBS team and those for Mr. Ronald Mukasa. Yes.
Yes, thank you. I think these are very good questions. Professor asked about contributions to society. I think one of the things we have to appreciate is that our personal finances are intertwined in the society in which we live. So generally, for example, when you think about I want you to think about this term in your local language. How do you call an uncle in your local language? Huh? Nera. An uncle specifically on your father's side. Who is an uncle on your father's side? You will notice that in our languages, there is no equivalent of uncle. Actually, the only word which exists is what? Is father. So that means that when my brother has children, in our setting, those are my what? They actually call you father, tata wange, baba. Are we on the same page? And that's, you have to understand how much responsibility is in that statement, because you can't just say your brother's children are his what? When our friends from the West, from Europe come, they actually tell you, no, my brother has his own family and I can be able to live my life, isn't it? But for us, even your brother can be with his wife in hospital and he calls you and says, your wife is about to have a child. Say, but I left my wife at home. Say, but your wife is about to have a what? Because your brother's wife is your what? You get my point? So that intricate relationship we have is what Professor is talking about. It is very challenging. It's very challenging. And many people have been stretched to a point where if you are the one who breaks through in the family, it feels like all of us have a right to your income. Are we on the same page? And it causes you not to have any investments and you perpetuate the problem. Because when you are earning an income, you can't invest because you are paying school fees for what? For everyone. My argument is that it has to be budgeted like everything else. There is nothing wrong with looking after your what? Your children and your brother's children. Nothing wrong. But it has to be on a what? On a budget. The same way you say that I have a budget where I am going to spend 20% on food. Say I'm going to spend 10% on generosity. And when you have spent the 10%, don't allow the society to make you feel like you haven't been generous. Are we on the same page? So some people go to the point of even getting heavily into what? Into debt. I think that it's important to notice that you need to be honest. That's what I talked about. Don't play God in your what? In your family. Be honest and say, this is what I can manage. The second thing, and I think it's very important, we need to start having honest conversations with our family. Because you have a brother who is in the village, but he walks around with your title. Say, no, Professor Ali Makerere. Are we on the same page? Your brother is somewhere hanging in Nakasongola, isn't it? He's not the professor, but he walks around the village saying, I'm Professor's brother. Are we on the same page? Even the Ayugereza Abawala using your name, isn't it? It's Muganda wa professor. But there's a problem with that, because that means that he's planning around your what? Your income. And friends, most of our families don't want to have these tough conversations. You have a fellow who is producing children, and you ask him, what's your plan? He says, but Professor is in Makerere. It doesn't add up. And we need to face that young man and tell him it's not okay for you to keep having children without a source of what? Of income. That should be a family meeting. And it should be a tough family meeting, which is led by you who works in Makerere. You sit down the family and say, you young man, we know you had a child with the other girl in the village. Why? How are you planning to look after? Because the moment you take that child away from him and you start paying school fees, you actually are giving him permission to have another one. You get my point? So to face these challenges, we need to be very honest. Because a lot of us, it's not that we don't want to invest, but you find, and there are times when it's genuine. You have lost a brother. He has passed away. You take on the responsibility. It's what we do as Africans, isn't it? But it's not okay for your brother who has 2 legs, 2 hands. He's in the village, and you say, what is your source of income? You say, Professor. We both have a job at the what? It's not right. We have to challenge. So for me, one of the actions you can take, Professor, to answer to your question, one of the things you should do is sit a family meeting and go through this presentation and tell them that no, if you are having a child, you take care of your what? Your child. If you are having a child, you take care of your what? Of your child. So that people know that I am responsible. In this country, when you turn 18, even when you are 16 and you have a child, you take responsibility. And we need to have those conversations. If we are not having them in our families, we are perpetuating a problem. The one person who is successful has all the responsibility, and the rest believe. Some of us burials don't start until we have arrived. They said, wait for doctor. When he comes, we'll start burying the person. It's a problem. You need to say, all of you hold your what? And I think that that conversation is supposed to be led by you, who leads the family. You sit down and say, in this family, this is how we behave. A few months ago, it's possibly about a month now, the Aga Khan passed away. Now, if you look at the faith which the Aga Khan what? Leads, they seems like they are clear behaviors. Behaviors like, if you come to me and I give you money, go and start a business. I don't need to write a contract. All I need is you to know that I gave you my money and it's your responsibility to what? Bring it back. That is a cultural thing, isn't it? And if you see how the Ismaili community has taken over many businesses, they will give money to each other. But the other person, it seems like it's a written what? In our society, you give a young man 2 million to start, he eats it and enjoys it. They say, this is just my brother's money. He'll take me to prison. You get my point? That means that we perpetuate a big what? Big problem. And I think that for me, the message there, Professor, is have these conversations, because you already have the answers. But let's have the what? The conversations. I'll answer another two and invite the team from the scheme to answer. Second saving option. So, yes, save for emergencies. One of the things you need to know about saving is that it is very, very difficult to do without having something forcing you to do it. The only reason why this scheme exists is because it is written into law. That's why it exists. If they gave us the 5% and said, you take it there yourself, most of us may fail to deliver it, isn't it? So the only way you can increase your saving is by putting some rules around yourself. That's what you do. So for example, you could say, I'm going to sign a document today. I am going to increase my saving by 5%. When you do it, you don't need, when you go back home, you notice, that's 5%, but the rule has already been what? So you need to put yourself in such an environment. One of the biggest circles in this country is Wazalendo. It is the circle of the what? Of the soldiers. The army circle. Do you know one of the secrets of Wazalendo's success? It is the fact that Wazalendo is run by military men. And their decisions are very simple. They come to the AGM, they tell you, private, you are going to save this amount. Poro, you are going to save this amount. Lieutenant, you are going to save this amount. Kano, you are going to save this amount. General, you are going to save this amount. Now, in the army, when General comes and gives you those instructions, you Kopolo, you don't put up your hand and say, I don't feel like I should save that amount. The rule is what? It's passed. So when you look at Wazalendo, they said the thresholds that army men have money to build houses, army men have money to get land. You get my point? But it's because the decision was made and it was made strong. But when you get into debate, the effect is what? Is zero. So for me, my encouragement to you is look at the performance of your fund. This is a decent performance, very excellent performance. 13.4 is good, and I do this for a living. It is good. However, the question you need to ask yourself is, how do I put a rule on my what? On myself. Because if you don't put it, the truth is life is outside this door. You will go back and the life what? Continues. However, when you say, me from this session I've pushed, I don't care even though you say, you know what, I'm adding only 2%. Only what? You put it there. That small 2% might be 20K in real effect, isn't it? But 20K over 10 years. You say, oh, that was a good afternoon. So that's the second form saving. My final question is, Bosco says 10 years. Oh, 10 years is a long period of time. 10 years, you still have a lot of what? Of time. 10 years, you can change. Our sister who gave a testimony, she said COVID was her turning point. But did you see her confidence? She was confident that I prepared, and she started 3 years to what? To retirement, isn't it? If there is anything, at least take that testimony. She actually said, I started 3 years to repair and organize myself. The beauty with us human beings is that when we are against the wall, something comes out of us, isn't it? Something comes out of us. Some of us, you are given land in your village, you have never taken it seriously. This is when you say, you know what, friends, that land which they gave me, I have taken it, isn't it? I want to plant some trees. Next 3 years, I'm going to plant the what? Trees. But you take action now. The best time to start was yesterday. The second best time to start is what? Is now. The final bit is annuities and unit trusts. And I know that you have an annuity product. So when the team comes, they will talk about it. But the simple difference is an annuity secures you an income until you die. We work out, you say, you know what, I want to at least receive 250,000 shillings per what? Month. You invest a certain amount in the annuity and it gives it to you. The lovely professors here in statistics, they teach people actuarial sciences. They know how to compute and do an estimate, and they will say, we'll give you 250 until you what? So you deposit 10, 20 million, we'll give you 250 until you what? So that's what the annuity does. The unit trust, on the other hand, is giving you a simple leg into investment markets, largely bonds and treasury bills. Sometimes some unit trusts even go to the capital markets. But the idea of the unit trust is, in a way, you save money there. You get interest on a daily basis, but you can access your money when you what? When you want it. So that's the fundamental difference. I'll invite the team to come and explain the other details. Who am I? Yes, sir.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mukasa. I think you've done most of the hard work. We'll just supplement, really. Yes, maybe we'll start with AVC. I will supplement on the answer you gave to Bosco Rule. 10 years, is it too late? And fortunately, here we have an example of someone who saved, did an AVC of 50,000, and what difference it makes in 10 years. The opening balance, 43 million. For the first column, there is no AVC. Now, the second column is where they make an AVC of 50,000. And I looked at 2%. You did say, can you try 2%? So 2%, 50,000 is 2% of 2.5 million. But you could do less, like you said, you could do more. So this one who did an AVC of 50,000, at the end of 10 years, the balance at the end of the 10th year is 156 million. Without AVC, the balance is 146 million. So it's a difference of 10 million. But what that 10 million can do, you talked of an emergency fund, you talked of, so that's a huge balance. And I know my friend Bosco, 2% could actually be more than 50,000. So 10 years is not too late. Also, when you look, we have even put here the interest awarded, interest first year, 10%, 10%, 10%, 10%. But on average, for the last 5 years, the MURBS interest has been more than 12%. So meaning if we compounded this at 12%, the difference will even be more than 10 million. So it was too late to start 3 years ago, 10 years ago. Bosco Rule, the next best time to start is now. This is our policy on AVC. You can do a one-off, but one-off is a window we give for people, say, project ends and they pay you gratuity. you have 20 million on your account, you have 50 million, you can bring all that and deposit it onto your MURBS account, and it compounds. On average, for the last 5 years, like I've told you, the MURBS interest has been 12%. But the one which is open for everyone is this AVC. The member may make such additional voluntary contributions to augment the benefits payable under these rules by committing to pay directly to the scheme a fixed and predetermined, so it must be fixed and predetermined for simple management at the scheme, monthly premium of not less than Uganda shillings 50,000. So AVC is open. You can save, you can start now if you didn't start already, even in 5 years, even 1 year to go, AVC is open. Don't underestimate the power of compounding. Do the 2%, do the 10%, do the 50,000. That difference, only you will testify when we call you to give testimonies, what difference it would have made in your pot as you go away. Annuities, I will also supplement in terms of investment versus not investment, annuities versus unit trusts. And you explained it very well. We recommend annuities for retirees because of largely what you told us, Mr. Mukasa. Researches have been done, and it's not only NSSF. Here in Uganda, that was conducted by NSSF. We'll do ours also, but it has also been done in our neighborhood here in Kenya, in whatever. On average, like you said, that lump sum, if you go beyond 24 months, you have done very well. And that's a very, very small fraction. But without any fear of contradiction, over 70% around there. By the 24th month, the lump sum is depleted. So can you please avoid being a statistic in that group and convert your lump sum into an annuity? So an annuity will guarantee you to get an income until death. And you may say, no, like you're saying, it's a mindset problem. Okay, you try with 1 foot, 50%, buy an annuity, it will guarantee your income, maybe 1 million, maybe 500,000 per month until you die. Then you can try your tricks using the other 50%. So thank you very much. I think those were the questions. Are they deducted at source? At the moment, we are still discussing with the powers that be to have automatic deductions using the code, but you know those things became complicated. So far, all the AVCs we have, we encourage to use an auto standing order. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Kakuba. And now we shall close. Oh. Okay, and now we shall close off the session with we're going to close off with remarks from our chairperson, Board of Trustees. Please don't forget to hand in your feedback tools. There are some forms. That gentleman right there is collecting them. And then we shall also have a group photo on this stage. Please don't leave without us taking the group photo. It would be good to have a record of the fact that you attended. Thank you very much.
Good evening, members online and members still in the room. I would request to start with another round of applause for the presenter. Thank you, Ronald. And I told the team that I was at campus with Ronald at School of Statistics and Ronald was our guild president. So thank you very much, Ronald, for that engagement. It has been an insightful and engaging session that we have had today. And on behalf of the Board of Trustees, many are online, and those present, and our members, stakeholders from the feedback online and from the feedback from the members who are in this room, I would like to sincerely express our deepest gratitude for the engaging session that you have given us on retirement planning and investments now and for the future. Your expertise and passion for this subject has given us a lot to reflect. I have seen many people commenting, I am ready to walk to Ginger, though I saw one saying, what are we doing in Ginger? So depending on the time, the person joined the conversation. But most importantly, the practical steps that you have given us. Most times people think, I can't do bonds, I can't do this, but you have spoken to every category that we have as part of our membership. And part of our mission and vision is to talk about to secure a dignified retirement. How do people retire? And I think you have ably talked about that. So beyond the professional insights you have given us, I liked the demography bit, and I was telling the men, and they told me that they spend their money looking after the women. That's why the women retire. I mean, survive longer, but the statistics don't lie. We have more men who take out midterm. So I think this has helped. Like, how do we address the issue of gender? It has been an absolute pleasure to have you dissect this topic on retirement planning, but also using our funds starting today to plan for the future. So your generosity in sharing your wisdom, how authentic you have been, speaks volumes about the kind of person you are, committed, knowledgeable, and always willing to empower others. Some of the key nuggets have been on the 7 traps, money traps. And I think for each of us, there is a trap, at least one, where we find we're in that trap. And then the bit of giving value, which resonates with me, I believe money follows value. And I liked how you explained the need to pursue excellence and to continuously improve. I have learned the offensive and defensive strategy using football. That's a good one. And the need to start the action now. And Ronald, I would want to testify that as you talked about this AVC, we got people to onboard. The first one is next to you, and who said, like, let's bring the forms. And I would want to tell those online and those physical, asking about the additional voluntary contributions. We have the forms available. You can sign it. You can sign up today. And there's really a huge difference for the people who have signed up for AVC, and it works for any category of staff in the scheme. And I like how you dissected, because most times people think, I do not have money to buy an annuity. I do not have money to add an AVC, but I think you have clearly helped us explain the concept that we have been explaining for years, that we can onboard people in the room. So many have decided to take action, and I have been informed there's also one who has accepted to sign up for an annuity. So thank you very much, Ronald. That's the impact this discussion and engagement has had. As we conclude, let's take what we have learned and put it in action. Let's all walk to Ginger. What would be Ginger in our own setting? Let's put into action. Retirement planning is not just about the future. It is about making informed decisions today or now. Once again, thank you, Ronald, for your time and expertise. We are privileged to have you. And as you noted, that I hope we give you another time, the members had already asked that please bring back Ronald again. So Ronald, anytime we shall reach out. Thank you very much, members. Session closed.
I don't think I'm allowed to add anything after that, but I welcome you to the stage. Please come and we take a group photo. Thank you.
Can I get better for the rest of my life? Say yes, cause I need to know. Say I'm your blessing to the day. Rise up and up my hand of the answer. I be so you and so
Please come to the stage for a group photo. We want to capture this background here. Please come to the stage. Thank you very much. You may find some stairs to stretch your legs a little bit. You heard Madame Jacqueline, she said, Doiro.
Sorry. Ajaba bama bama let them watch sing with some anan sama Jesus in a chitu era kunya sana malwa now ye waba na gante sere choli choli waba kuba saba seba kuba abanyanya sinina mula na kwishi basero pana waliwo enjawulo kwa mala no kupabula aponjero mbeke mbuzeni na malala na yabo kula maboba bana chotabula aponjero mbeke mbuzeni na malala na yabo kula maboba bana chotabula ha
Hello, hello, hello. We are here. Hello. Let's all look into the camera. I request Madam Chair to push in front. Part of the trustees. We've been in front, so I can't see you. Okay, we need some smiles. Let's be happy. Let's be happy.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yena kwanda torero, mi se como kono bo, on kagenge